very first sentence of this motion, the motion mover is aware that the Fertilizer and the Animal Foodstuff Act 2015 provides for the regulation of fertilizer importation in the country, and the further aware notes that the Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuffs Board regulates the fertilizer and animal foodstuffs industry, including the manufacture and production of fertilizer. So we are aware of the existence of legislations, acts, policies. There are a number of SAGAs, semi-autonomous government agencies, that have been established in the Ministry of Agriculture. I think the Ministry of Agriculture has one of the largest number of SAGAs among the ministries that we have as a country. We talk of KEFIS, we talk of CARO, that was famous, formerly CARI. We talk of the Agricultural Food Authority that has several departments for each crops. They have pyrethrum, they have maize, they have sorghum, cashew nuts for the coastarians. They have sugar, tea, coffee, name them, all under one umbrella, AFA. And I can go on and go on. Very many departments that have been established, some from the crop side, others from the animal side. We are blessed with fauna and flora as a country. So we're supposed to be sufficient. When we look at how agriculture was established as a backbone of this nation, we look at the history of the colonialists. When the British colonizers arrived here, they did not single out Kenya as a mineral destination. Kenya was not a gold-rich nation. It was not an oil-rich nation. The British established a colony here because they discovered Kenya as an agriculture-rich nation. And we have since moved out of there. We are no longer, the agriculture is no longer the backbone of this republic. We are moving to other things, other economic frontiers. But you cannot stand strong as a nation if you are not food sufficient. The superpowers are strong. Russia has held Europe by its neck or bells because of being food sufficient. Ukraine has become at the center of the global war because of being a food sufficient nation. You cannot become a superpower. Kenya has prided itself for being an East African hegemony, but we can no longer flourish in the past glory of being an East African hegemony. Why? Because we neglected our very backbone that made our economy strong. Agriculture and fertilizer. Fertilizer is at the very center of the bone marrow of our economy, which is agriculture. When we look at how developed nations, what we call the developmental nations of the ASEAN countries, and ASEAN, I refer to the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations, led by Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, South Korea, Taiwan. These nations were at par, or some were actually trailing Kenya in terms of GDP. They all faced the same colonial masters. At the same point, we were all colonized as the ASEAN countries. What made them have a step ahead? It's not that they suddenly discovered mineral or something else. They emphasized on the agriculture, which was their strength, just like agriculture is the strength of most African nations. They improved their production, value addition. They maximized profit out of agriculture. Apart from making what we call broad coalitions to cater for their internal politics, just like we we've been having broad-based government so that to have a conducive political environment to flourish as a nation, they emphasize on local food production that were able to be sold internationally, textile industry, and the emphasis on the institutions, bureaucratic institutions that made sure that there's no corruption, there are no cabal system that will get established, which has always been our problem as a country. We need not to overemphasize on legislation on things to do with fertilizer. We do have enough legislation. It is good this motion brings a discourse for the nation to discuss where have we gone wrong. But it is far away from trying to lead us into having more acts, legislation, more bills, more policies. We do have enough. We must cultivate a culture of nation that wants to flourish and develop and become an international giant. That culture is missing. That culture is missing in our leadership. That culture is missing in our top leadership, and it trickles down to the line ministries up to the local level. We must establish a culture of proper leadership, good leadership that determines where the nation is, where the nation was, and where the nation needs to go. Before you start thinking about legislation, which we have in plenty, we need to establish a country that has a right-thinking leadership right from the top. If we have it rose at the top, then you don't expect miracles at the bottom. This is not bottom-up, this is top-down. You have to come from top to bottom. I can see my friend looking at me almost coming to give a rejoinder. But that is how we will make our country better. You must start from top to bottom. In terms of corruption, the rest of the things you can do from bottom to up. But in terms of corruption and making sure that the proper leadership in this country that directs the nation to the right way, you must start from the top. And I dare say that we have messed this country right from the top. That's where we need to start. When you say fertilizer industry has cartels, where are these cartels flourishing without the topmost leadership intervention? We must ask the questions. Those bitter questions we must ask ourselves. And that's why our nations, African nations, are lagging behind, because we never discovered that what ails us. The Asian countries discovered. That's why they say they are developmental states. They are in the category of developmental states. Some, you can call it mercantilism, where the trade surplus makes the country flourish. You can call it Marxism, you can call it capitalism, but all in all, you must discover the strengths of a nation and develop it from there. And to me, agriculture remains to be the strength of this nation, and we must cultivate. So if the area of fertilizer is not an area that you need to overemphasize in terms of legislation, this is an area that needs good culture of leadership. We cannot have sagas all over. We cannot have sagas consuming our natural resources, our treasury, our treasury, and they are just there. Sagas that exist for production, for research, and they are there. That's where we need to start. We do not need to establish another saga when there is already another saga whose primary responsibility is for production of vaccine. We have Kevevapi, we have the Kenya Veterinary, we have the Calro, we have the Kefis. We can name and name them. They are there. But what are they doing? We need to establish and look at what authority formed these sagas. Why do they exist? What have they done so far? If they don't do them, then can we now merge them or restructure them so that we don't waste so much of our resources towards moribund organization? Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
Is it a point of order? Okay. Honorable members, I would like to welcome students from Moi Educational Center, Lang'ata constituency, Nairobi County. Honorable members, help me to welcome them. You are welcome to the National Assembly to observe proceedings of the